I now have the honor of introducing Chief Economist and ESG Officer at ADP, Nela Richardson. Always tricky to get on the bar stool. Okay. All right, Nela, I gave your title, but I must say I think you have one of the most interesting jobs out there. So I would love to kick off by just getting this audience a bit smarter on what you do at ADP and some of the workforce data that you guys are analyzing.
My name is Nela, and I have the best job in the world.
To scoop you.
ADP is an HR and payroll company. It operates in more than 140 countries around the world. 40 million, more than 40 million workers around the world, 26 million in the United States. And what that means on a very practical level is we have a lot of data. And if you think about the future, if you think about that future that Eric just described so beautifully in terms of its productive capacity, it's fueled by data. And it's data that you can evaluate, data that you can measure, and data that you can fuel. But what's great about measurement, which is the space I live in, is we think at ADP, if you can measure it, you can nurture it. So if we're talking about the jobs of tomorrow, the tasks of tomorrow, the skills of tomorrow, measuring them is the first step to nurturing tomorrow. And I can't think of a better thing to do with your time.
You have a great attitude for day 2 of Davos, too. I love that. So you mentioned the millions of... I know, we all are. You mentioned the millions of workforce data points, and let's go a little bit deeper there. The workforce is definitely having a moment right now.
And I think the workforce is always having a moment. But there's a lot of, concern, worry, excitement, all of the good that you are studying. And I think that if you think about these data points, I'd love to know how AI is showing up in these data points with your workforce.
So I think Eric laid that out initially with how it's working in terms of occupations, that we're seeing those careers that have AI exposure, and measuring AI exposure is also a really interesting feat in itself, that early career, because you can match ADP's demographic data to see who is being affected, not just what is being affected by AI. But there's a second level of that. Traditionally, economists have really measured the labor market by this idea of creation and destruction of jobs. And that is quickly expiring, Kristin. It's more, as Eric mentioned, the creation and destruction of tasks, and what tasks are being created by these new technologies, and what tasks are being resolved and put away by these new technologies. And at ADP, we can not only measure those tasks, but we can also evaluate them in terms of compensation. So if you think about a future where you have this big productivity boom, but you're able to mitigate the risk of worker transition, that's a beautiful future, because you use AI to solve the problems of AI, and that's what the frontier research is doing. What are those high-value tasks of the future that we can transition workers into?
I love what you said, and you said this when we spoke before, that jobs are not being destroyed, tasks are being destroyed. So I just want to double down on that. I think that's super relevant, and also leads into my next question, which is that AI is augmenting, right? Not automating. And so are workers feeling more productive?
Probably not. And the reason is, if you think about what we feel productive often is checking the box on our task list. I responded to this many emails. I summarized this document. I returned these phone calls. What if AI did all that for us? And really now our job is, I created this amazing business strategy that will lead us into the future. Well, that is harder to measure. And so we may not feel productive because our work is changing so quickly, but also because we are developing these higher functioning tasks, and that is cloudy a little bit before it gets translated and executed, monetized, or put into some form of value. So it's all about, to me, redefining productivity. Not just productivity at the macro level, but at the granular task-based level.
A little bit deeper on that, and I think Eric mentioned this too, some of the data that you've been working on that shows that workers' engagement and motivation is increasing. That's wonderful to hear, but how should companies and leaders approach their workforce to ensure that they know they are being brought along for the ride?
What our data shows is that people don't just do their own thing at work. You all know this. We all work in teams. We work with one another. And increasingly, we are going to have this work colleague called an AI assistant. I'm going to call mine Sammy. It's the name of my imaginary friend that is now real and does stuff for me. but
I think of mine.
we work in teams. And so while an individual who has access to AI may feel more engaged in their work, they may become disconnected from their team. Because now the questions that I would have asked you, or the discussion I would have had with you, I might be discussing with an AI agent.
Right.
And so the question is, how can an employer capture that productivity, that brilliance, that innovation, all that sparkly stuff that's going to happen with AI, but harness it so the whole team is shared into it and people are connected with each other. That's keeping people connected, which I think you'll hear Maria talk about, keeping humans in the loop, but also keeping ourselves in our work with our teams, because that's going to be an important way to make productivity at the task level realized.
Yeah, nothing more important, right? Okay, one final question. This is a big one. We've talked a lot about data, work, teams, motivation. What are you personally, you said you already had the best job, but what are you most excited about for 2026 as a part of your work?
Oh, that's great. We probably rehearsed that and I forgot already. I'm excited about a lot of things, but I think what I'm most excited about is AI's ability to extend the workforce. We talk a lot about how AI is going to, maybe there's a risk that we reduce the capability of the workforce. But I think if AI is done well, it means that people who are not in the workforce now because of all kinds of reasons now have an avenue back, that this upskilling brings people into higher valued work that they actually love and enjoy, that people can work longer if they want and build those connections, or they can change the way they work and really harness different creative skill. So I think if we can measure all that and harness all that and provide indicators for the future for employers and workers, that is the secret sauce that gets us to a better tomorrow. That's what I'm excited about.
I like ending on a positive note. You've given us a lot to think about. Thank you for this worthy conversation.
Thanks.